Hey, welcome to Michigan Grown Outdoors. So I want to talk a little bit about what is mobile or run and gun deer hunting, right? And why I do it, why you might want to, where's a good place to start off, possibly some lessons I've learned over the course of my hunting experience, and just kind of try to hopefully point some people into the right direction and kind of put some of the marketing concepts of today's world at ease and just kind of really talk about this stuff, right? So, the marketing concept of mobile hunting. If you Google search it right now, it's going to come up and say a lightweight system designed for where you can set up and hunt anywhere and everywhere you want. So, or something around those lines. And I'm going to completely disagree with that. It doesn't need to be lightweight, and any system that's available has limitations. It's not anywhere everywhere as they want to go into that. So to get into that, the different types of mobile hunting that are like marketed now is you got a saddle setup, you got a hang and hunt setup, and you got climbers. You know, climbers are limited to straight trees with minimal branches and or no branches really until you get to where you want to hunt for to your hunting height preferably. And hang and hunts, you're limited on how many sticks or how much gear you bring in, how high you can get. And same with saddle hunting, you're limited to the gear that you bring in on how high you can get. I mean, you got those guys, I want to say the SRT or whatever it's called. I mean, I'm sure that's a car, but they launch those ropes in the tree and they hump their way up. And, you're still limited. You say any tree, but you got trees with branches and that rope's going through, you're still making noise. To each their own with these things. If I'm offending you, you probably shouldn't be watching my channel because it's an opinion thing, right? It's my opinion. If you're that easily offended, this says more about you than it does me, all right? So this is just how I feel about it. And this definition of mobile hunting, that it needs to be lightweight, is silly. Anywhere and everywhere is silly. That's not possible. Mobile hunting's been going on since the beginning of time, ever since people have been able to walk the woods to hunt for deer. So, or anything, right? Really, but I'm talking about deer because this is a deer hunting, conversation for my channel. And to me, that definition could be changed to saying it's when you bring the hunt to the deer and you're taking it by surprise. To me, that's the essence of mobile hunting. You're taking your woodsmanship skills out into the woods, tracking down an animal and getting on a hunt with it. Whether it be you stalking up to it and getting it by surprise, or you learning its environment and going out into that environment and getting onto that deer where it is now and setting up to surprise it, okay? That's what I see as mobile hunting. There's a lot of people that go and set up over food plots or, crop fields or whatever. You can still mobile hunt over those areas. That's fine. You can still have these lightweight setups and still not be mobile. That's fine. But for it to be mobile hunting, you have to take that hunt to the animal and have that element of surprise. And that's how I'm going to define it. It's up to you if you want to agree with me or not, but that's just how I'm looking at it and that's how I approach it. Okay, so to start off about where I started off with, how I got to where I'm at, a couple things I've learned along the way that really opened my eyes to being mobile and the success and the desire for it. And that's to start off with, before, when I first started hunting, I used to hunt over bait. I was a bait hunter up until Michigan banned it. And that is when I really started to go into mobile hunting, because my ideas here were, okay, well, baiting is banned. What do I do now? How do I attract these animals? How do I attract them to me? How do I bring them to me? And that is the wrong question. So I went out and I'm like, where do does bed? Where do bucks bed? How do I hunt? Started getting into it on YouTube and in forums. And that's when I went down the rabbit hole. But I really started to learn a lot of things. I watched The Hunting Public. I watched Dan Infalt's The Hunting Beast. I watched a lot of Whitetail Addictions. I learned a lot and watched a lot from Jason Sankoviak at the Traditional Bowhunter and Wilderness podcast. You want to learn some real cool stuff, watch it and talk to a trad bow guy. I mean, these guys, their ranges are up to 20 yards, and we're over here with compound bows or even crossbows or rifles, still mobile hunting. And that's far beyond what a trad bow is going to do. I've turned a lot of heads when I've said traditional bow's ultimate when it comes to that kind of stuff, and my hats are off to those guys. Nothing but respect to y'all. So moving on from that, so when it comes to like my growth into mobile hunting and I started researching all this stuff and learning this stuff, I started expanding my woodsmanship. And woodsmanship is key to mobile hunting. If you don't have woodsmanship, you're just throwing sits out blind in the woods over who knows what, old sign, new sign, you don't know. Winter trails, summer trails, what kind of patterns, are these food sources, and you really need to learn how to key in onto that. So as I started to evolve into mobile hunting, I was like, okay, well, I started learning like where these deer are moving and stuff like that. Okay, well, I'll start doing somewhat mobile stuff. I'll adapt it into it and just kind of go and, do it my way, So one of these sits that really opened up my eyes is when I set up. It was winter time. It snowed the evening, and I'm like, look, I could go out there tonight. I got snow falling. I'll cover up my scent a little bit. I'll go set up tonight. I'll go find a tree, and while it's still light out, I'll go find a tree. I'm gonna set up my anchor for my my harness. That way I don't gotta fiddle with that in the morning, and I know how high to climb to set up for all my shooting lanes. Because in Michigan, you can't trim lanes, right? So I'm gonna go up there and find a tree that has good lanes for the area that I'm hunting, and it'll be perfect. And I can climb back down with my climber, lock it to the tree, and that's gonna be quieter to unlock and ascend than it would be for me to start all over in the beginning and walk around that area looking for a tree to begin with. So go out there the next morning, I'm walking my trail back to my tree, and I see these giant, like 4-inch tracks meeting my trail. And it turns and it walks the way that I'm going to my tree. And I'm like, what's going on here, right? So I'm following these tracks, which are following my tracks, and it goes right to my stand. It works around the tree a little bit, doesn't go anywhere else. There's white snow everywhere. I can see these tracks, right? Doesn't go anywhere else. It poops there, it pees here. It spent some time, and then it walked away. And I just realized how much education did I just give this mature animal. My access, where I'm setting up, this animal knows something, right? He's on to me. That element of surprise is gone. And then I thought about it. How many times has this happened in the past where I didn't have snow to see it? How many times has this happened when I've set up a trail camera? How many times has this happened when I put out a bait pile in the past? How many times has this happened to my friends, family, everyone else that's hunting out here? So this is something that really opened my eyes where I'm like, there is something to this mobile stuff where you set up as you hunt and you take it down when you're finished. And that was a big eye opener to me. I see guys that talk about leaving it out overnight and coming back the next morning. And I mean, to each their own. It's still mobile hunting, but to me, it was an eye opener. That deer found me at night, and I guarantee you he didn't go back in there anytime soon. So there's that example. Another one as I was mobile hunting, and it was after I learned that lesson. Okay, well, maybe I don't want to sit in the same tree all the time, right? Especially when I hunt same areas year after year. So I had hunted this oak flat in years past. I got a successful hunt on a lone doe. Key thing is she was alone. And recovered her, did all that stuff right. A year or two later, those oaks were dropping super nice again, and this is up close to bedding. It's a transitional area, right? Going in through all this. And this area specifically was an opening in all these oaks, and the main big oak drop was in this little opening in the middle of it. And I'm set up on the edges because around the edges of all this and expanding through the woods, there's a lot of young white pines. And at the ground level, the deer can kind of see around through it and stuff like that. But when you get up and elevated, you have that cover around you. You can kind of sit on top looking in. And here comes these deer back into this oak flat. And that first doe out stopped at a pine, and it looked right at that tree that I had sat in years prior. And it stared at it. And I was like, no way. How does this deer know? And I thought about that snow, and I thought about those times that It knows that the human came in and harvested that deer, because what happened after I harvested that deer? I climbed down and I tracked it, right? Those deer go out through that woods, they smell blood, they smell the kill, they find out what happened to George or Gina or whatever, and they track it, they keep tabs on you. So that was a real eye-opener to me as well, having a deer that wasn't even there when I shot a previous deer look at a tree that I was in. Maybe there was another hunter there in years prior and spooked it. I don't know, but I really don't think that was the case, because typically people in that area preset their stuff. So that was a big eye opener to me and kind of really keyed me in onto this hunting mobile. But the biggest factor to me mobile hunting was that I only get about 2 weeks out of the year to hunt back home in Michigan. I live 1,400 miles away from my hunt. You could call it a weekend warrior. I'm still passionate about the outdoors. I mean, you can call it what you want, but this is my take on it. So to every hunt to me is an out-of-state hunt. It's not where I live. I don't get to do spring scouting. I don't get to do these as much stuff. So my learning curve is slower. I develop a little bit different. I do a lot of in-season stuff. I have friends and family that'll go out there and shine fields and scout around, and they don't always fully adapt the mobile way that I do. There's times they leave their stands in the woods and still do their thing, which is fine. Like, they're my buddies. I love them. If that's what you do, I love you too, right? I'm not upset with how you do things. I'm not sitting there trying to make you do things my way. I'm just explaining what is this mobile hunting stuff and what are the benefits of it. And these are just some of the lessons I've learned along the way. And I want to really dig in now for this, like, where do you start? Because it's a really confusing thing. You start with the woodsmanship, and then it's getting into your first setup. Where do you start with that? And what kind of factors determine what way you should go? So, and this is all opinion based. This is how I look at it, how I view it. And for me, the last thing I would recommend to a beginner is to jump into a saddle. I got a buddy that saddle hunts. I've tried, hunting from a saddle platform. It's not my thing, but it's a real huge leap to go from a box blind, preset, ladder stand, whatever, to a saddle platform, saddle sticks, or whatever. That's a huge different animal. Not every saddle is the same. If you start looking at saddles that have the most adjustments, they're a little bit heavier, bulkier, and they feel funny. They're not the most comfortable thing because of the bulkiness of it. And then you got saddles that are bare minimum, hammocks almost like, or lightweight, 2-panel, single panel. There's so many options that you really need to take your time, and there is a growth, and there is trial, and there is error, and it's a little bit different. Okay, so if you want to get into saddles, do it, but I'm just telling you, it's a little bit of a different kind of animal. Okay, and then you got and then with saddles, you got different. Are you using sticks? Are you throwing up ropes and humping your way up the tree? Are you one sticking? Are you using multiple sticks? So there's a lot of things that kind of limit you there, okay? Or that really makes that decision of where to be a little bit more difficult. And then you got hang and hunt setups. You can still one stick with those if you want, but you can get more concealment and stuff like that than versus like a climber. And a climber, to me, when it comes to people first wanting to learn to mobile hunt, as long as they're in an area like what I hunt in Michigan, I got a lot of climber trees. Climbers kind of restrict what kind of trees and how many trees you can get into. They got to be nice and straight. They can't be thrown up with branches. They got to be barren. Basically a telephone pole up until how high you want to hunt and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. You're more stuck out, you got less cover around you. There's things like that go into it, but they do get you into a game. I've had a lot of success in them. You just really got to plan it out and think it through. But there's a lot of options out there for climbers, varying in weights. You got 20-pound stands that you can get for like $350, and then you got $1,000 stand that is 20 pounds. So, and is the price worth it, right? So this is where I'm going to get into the pricing of stands and setups and where to start. So right off the bat, what you can afford. If you can afford those higher end stuff, there's a reason why people pay $1,000 for a setup. It's because it does have efficiency and there's an ease of use. When you're doing those long treks, those long hikes in mountains, up and down hills or whatever, having that lightweight, even if it's just you're walking down a field edge that's, I don't know, 800 yards long. I mean, having a lighter weight stand when you get to that 800 yards is so much nicer than having 20, 30, 40 pounds there, okay? I was taking climbers that were the same weight. Like I had, like, oh, I'll buy these cheaper stands first. I still found myself using my Summit Climber because they weighed basically the same, and most of the places I hunted have climber trees, and I had more comfort in it. So it was really hard to really commit to that hang and hunt style until it came to lighter equipment and stuff like that. And I found that I can get these lighter stands and I can get them into better concealment, which also adds to better success. So that's just a couple things to think about there, and really kind of think about your environment that you're hunting to determine what you want and what you need to hunt out of to get you started. Because that's the biggest limiting factor, is the environment you're hunting. If you're planning on hunting swamps or edges and stuff like that where trees grow with a lot of branches, you might want to be looking at that hang and hunt or saddle setup. But if you're going into some big woods and you're going to put it into a tree that doesn't have branches on it, but you're able to tuck behind a pine tree or some kind of sapling growing that's going to be able to provide you cover, go for a climber. Do your research, look into it. But you don't have to spend a lot if you don't want to. Don't feel like you have to buy lightweight. But if you can afford lightweight, it is a great place to start. Don't get mad at me. There are advantages to it, but you have to take that with a grain of salt, and that's the honest truth. There are advantages to those lighter options, otherwise people wouldn't buy them. There's a reason why guys that ran 50, 60 pounds before are down to 20, 10, 15 pounds now. So think about it. Think about what you can afford. If you have the money for it and you're not breaking the bank, spend what you can afford, because it's going to be a very key thing into making it more easier and efficient for you to get on these deer. And that's my honest truth. I mean, I've asked a lot of guys and they're like, hey, the pay once, cry once is the right idea. Because when you're mobile, you really want to find that ultimate one thing to set one stand to replace all the other stands that are presets that are out in the woods. You don't have to buy 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 presets to try to bounce around from. You can buy that one stand, take it into the woods, set up with it, and hunt. But I also say that where I take 4 stands every time I go into the woods. I got a 0.5, a 0.75, and 2 climbers. A lot of that is I want to have my stand a backup, and then I got buddies that go with me, and I love letting them use my gear and walk away from some of their presets at times. So hopefully you found some good information from this video. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much. If you got any questions, put them below. If you got arguments about what I said, put them below. I don't mind debating or talking about whatever. You might have a very valid point in your opinion against mine, and I have no problem admitting wrong in that and admitting you got a point. So do what you want to do. Share the video, like, subscribe. If you don't, cool stuff. But I hope that there's something that came from this that you're able to learn, and hopefully might help contribute to determining if you want to become a mobile hunter or if you want to keep sticking to some of the same old stuff. So good luck to you, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.